In the heart of Oduma village, surrounded by tall trees and deep silence, lived a girl named Amara. She was quiet, respectful, and known for her beauty. Her skin glowed like morning sunlight on river water, and her voice was soft like wind through palm leaves. The villagers said she had no flaws, not even in her shadow. Amara lived alone, ever since her parents passed during a strange fever that swept the village one rainy season. Since then, she kept to herself, cooking quietly, tending to her garden, and selling herbs at the market. People liked her, but no one really knew her. They only saw her smile, never her heart. Every evening, Amara would light her oil lamp, close her wooden windows, and lie on her small mat near the fire. Her nights were quiet. No dogs barking, no frogs croaking, only silence. But in that silence, something slept beside her, something cold, something that moved without sound. She never saw it, never turned to look. But every night, she felt warmth wrap around her legs, then coolness coil across her back. She thought it was a dream, maybe the wind, maybe her imagination, but it returned, night after night, for weeks, then months. Amara never told anyone. How could she? Who would believe her? She had no bruises, no marks, just that feeling, like being watched, even when her eyes were closed. One morning, as she prepared cassava near her door, an old woman approached. No one knew where the old woman came from, but her voice was strong. "Child," she said, "you smell like the forest." Amara looked up, confused. "You sleep with something not from this world," the old woman whispered, then walked away. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. Her heart beat faster than usual. When she lay down, the feeling returned. Soft pressure around her waist, then something heavy across her chest, like arms or scales. She wanted to scream, but couldn't. Her body froze. Her eyes stayed open, staring at the ceiling. She waited for morning, but sleep swallowed her. When Amara woke, the morning sun had already climbed high. Her clothes were damp, clinging to her skin. She sat up slowly, trying to shake off the heaviness in her chest. Her mat was disturbed, like someone had tossed and turned all night beside her. But she had slept alone. Or had she? She rubbed her arms and looked around the room. Everything seemed in place, except for one thing. On the edge of the mat, near her pillow, lay a small brown scale, smooth, shiny, and unfamiliar. She picked it up with trembling fingers. It was cold, too cold for a warm morning like this. Amara placed the scale in a clay bowl and covered it. She told herself it belonged to a lizard, or maybe a strange insect, but deep down, something inside her knew it was neither. That day at the market, she couldn't focus. Her hands shook as she measured out herbs. Customers asked if she was sick. She smiled and said she was just tired, but her thoughts stayed on that scale. When she returned home before sunset, she checked the bowl again. The scale was gone. She didn't remember moving it. No one had entered her home. Her doors were locked, her windows closed, and yet the bowl was empty. That night, she didn't light her lamp. She sat in darkness, her back against the wall, her ears open. Hours passed. The fire burned low. Then she heard it, a faint sliding sound, not like footsteps, not like breathing, a slow, careful movement across the floor. She stopped breathing. The sound grew louder, closer. Something brushed her foot. She leapt up, grabbed her lamp, and lit it with shaking hands. The flame flickered, weak and small. The room looked empty. Her mat was untouched. The door still closed. Nothing moved. But then she saw it, near the corner. A long line in the dust. A trail. Like something had slithered from her mat to the wall and disappeared into the shadows. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the floor. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She just sat there until the morning light crept into the room. The next morning, Amara left her house before sunrise. She didn't greet the neighbors, didn't stop to pick herbs. She walked straight to the far side of the village, where few dared to go. There stood the hut of Mama Anilo, a woman old as memory, with eyes like burnt charcoal and breath that smelled of bitter roots. Some called her mad, others called her wise, but everyone agreed if something unnatural was happening, Mama Anilo would know. Amara stood outside her door, hesitating. Before she could knock, the door creaked open on its own. "I felt you coming," Mama Anilo said from inside. Amara stepped in. The room was dark, filled with dried leaves and hanging bones. "You sleep with a shadow, child," the old woman said. "It coils around your spirit at night." Amara's hands trembled. "What is it?" she whispered. Mama Anilo lit a small fire in a clay pot. Smoke rose, sharp and sweet. Something ancient, something hungry. It does not wear a human face, but it watches like one. Amara couldn't speak. "Did you invite it?" the old woman asked. "No," Amara said quickly, but her voice cracked. "Not with words," Mama Anilo replied. "But sometimes loneliness speaks louder than prayers, and spirits listen." Amara looked down. "Can it be sent away?" she asked. Mama Anilo shook her head slowly. "It has already chosen you. What comes next depends on what it wants." Amara left with a small leather pouch filled with crushed leaves and black powder. "Burn this when it touches you again," Mama Anilo instructed, "and whatever you do, do not speak its name." That night, Amara sat awake beside her fire, the pouch clutched in her hand. The room was quiet, too quiet. Then, as if summoned by breath itself, the fire dimmed. Her lamp flickered, and she felt it again, coldness creeping onto her mat. The weight returned, curling beside her. A warmth that didn't come from flesh. Her fingers tightened around the pouch. Her breath caught in her throat. Amara stayed frozen, eyes open, not daring to move. The weight beside her pressed closer, sliding across her stomach. Not like arms, not like a body. Something heavier, something that pulsed with slow heat and scale. Her heart pounded. She could feel her own sweat trickling down her back, but her body wouldn't obey her. The pouch in her hand grew slippery. She gathered all her strength, gritted her teeth, and reached for the fire. Her fingers found a coal, red and alive, and with one motion, she dropped it onto the pouch. Smoke burst out in a thick gray wave, sharp and bitter. The thing beside her hissed. It wasn't loud, but it was deep, ancient, low, vibrating through the floor. Her mat shifted as if something large recoiled. The smoke spread fast, curling around the room like fingers. Amara sat still, her chest rising in fast bursts. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just watched the smoke rise. Then, suddenly, the room was still. Whatever had been there was gone. She waited until the first bird sang before she moved. Her body ached, her throat dry. She stood up, legs shaking, and looked around. Nothing was out of place, but something had changed. The air felt lighter. She thought maybe it was over. Maybe Mama and Nilo's smoke had worked. For the first time in weeks, she opened her window. Sunlight poured in. She breathed deep and smiled. But her smile didn't last. That evening, just before dusk, a boy ran up to her stall at the market, his eyes wide, face pale. "Come quick," he gasped. "The chief's son, he's sick. He says your name." Confused and alarmed, Amara followed him. The crowd had already gathered. Inside the chief's hut, the young man thrashed on the floor, foam around his mouth. His eyes rolled back, but his voice came low and clear. She called it. She brought it, the one with the cold breath. Everyone turned to look at Amara. Amara froze. Her feet felt like stones. The chief's wife pointed at her with trembling fingers. "What have you done to my son?" she cried. The villagers whispered, their eyes narrowing. A few stepped back from her. "I did nothing," Amara said, but her voice was barely audible. The chief stood slowly, his face hard with grief. "He said your name. He saw something. Speak, girl. What have you brought into our village?" Amara shook her head, but her silence only deepened the suspicion. The chief waved his hand. "Take her outside. We will deal with this before sunset." They pulled her by the arms, dragging her out into the square. She didn't fight. What would she say? That a spirit had been sharing her bed? That it hissed in the dark and disappeared in smoke? That she never invited it, but somehow it came? No one would believe her, the same way they didn't believe Mama and Nilo. That night, they tied her to the judgment pole, the one used only for the worst crimes: poisoning, witchcraft, betrayal. The elders circled her, chanting, while the rest of the village watched in silence. Children hid behind their mothers. Men held spears. The air was thick with fear. Then something strange happened. A sharp gust of wind blew through the square, though the trees didn't move. The flames of the torches flickered. The ropes around Amara's wrists twitched, and from the shadows, a hissing sound echoed, low, drawn out, and close. Too close. The villagers froze. One by one, their heads turned toward the well at the edge of the square. A shape moved in the dark, long, smooth, writhing, then another, then two more. From the mouth of the well, a massive black snake slithered into the open. Not just large, it was monstrous. Its scales shone like oil. Its eyes glowed like burning charcoal. Behind it, two smaller snakes followed, silent as death. The crowd screamed. People scattered, some falling to the ground, others running for the trees. But the snakes didn't chase them. They came straight for Amara. The snakes moved slowly, deliberately, as if they didn't fear the crowd or the fire. Their bodies slid over the dust, leaving deep trails. The largest one reared its head, rising tall enough to meet Amara's eyes. She didn't scream. She didn't struggle. Her chest rose and fell, her hands still bound, but her gaze never dropped. The great serpent stared at her, then slowly circled her like it had done so many nights before. The crowd stood frozen, too afraid to move. The chief tried to shout, but no sound came from his mouth. Then something even stranger happened. The snake leaned close. Its forked tongue flicked near Amara's cheek, then touched her forehead, like a kiss. A whisper passed through the air, a sound only she could hear. The ropes around her wrists snapped, not by hand, not by knife. They unraveled as if they had never been tied. Amara stepped forward. her voice low. "It chose me," she said, loud enough for all to hear, "and I never sent it away." The villagers gasped. Some dropped to their knees, begging for forgiveness. Others ran, but the snakes ignored them. They circled Amara once more, then slithered toward the forest, vanishing into the trees. Amara stood still for a long time. Her hands were free, but her eyes were empty. When the chief finally found the strength to speak, he asked, "What was that thing?" She looked at him and said, "The one who watches the lonely, the one who comes when no one else does." After that night, Amara left the village. No one saw where she went. Some say she followed the snakes. Others say the forest swallowed her whole. But from that day on, strange things happened in Oduma. Crops withered, babies cried through the night, and every so often, someone claimed to see a dark figure near the river, watching, waiting. And on cold nights, when the moon was high, women whispered to each other, "Do not sleep alone. Do not speak to shadows, and never, ever ignore the sound of hissing in the dark." I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you.